what was your publication that you were going to submit to?
The Food Tank.
The Food Tank. And then what sort of things do they usually publish?
They publish Q&A, investigative pieces.
Oh, okay.
And investigative pieces that has to be original, organic.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember two. There was one more, but I think I was following the genre of investigative pieces.
Okay. And so what is the main purpose that you would want someone to get out of this? The main idea?
I want them to understand that for example, we had Coca-Cola booth outside over here at the campus some time back.
Okay.
Now Coca-Cola set up the booth to drive sales and connect with to drive their sales. But what I liked interesting about this organization is that they have a product. They're a startup. They have a product. Their funds are limited,
mm-hmm.
but they're using food sampling to go ahead and connect with the consumers, get feedback on their product,
mm-hmm.
and redefine their strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So they have from the sampling sessions that they have done, they have figured out their popular. Their frozen treats are not ice creams, but they're premium ice creams.
Mm-hmm.
They're egg-free, gluten-free, and it's following the trend of one of the more foam-free type of food products.
Mm-hmm.
So they are over here connecting with the consumers to get feedback on their product. Then based on the feedback, they have defined some of the things that they have achieved is that they started off by calling it kulfis. Then they have which is a Persian frozen treat.
Mm-hmm.
Now from there they have expanded their horizons to call it ethnic premium ice creams. That's one thing. Then second is the flavors. Then third thing is that when they were just trying in their test, when their product was still in the test kitchen, they wanted to know that if their product is going to be accepted by the customers or not. So they ran a survey and they got feedback on those flavors, on the recommendation intent, the purchase intent, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I really I believe that there, as I said in the article, there are 3 steps to it. That you create the product in your kitchen, then you bring it to the shelves, and then you get it to the consumer's plate.
Mm-hmm.
But they're right now on the first step, and they're still trying to get and bring it to the shelves. And while their strategy evolves, for the first step, what I really find interesting is that instead of really focusing on consumer insights, they're going by food sampling as a data.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what interests me. And
Mm-hmm.
when someone reads my article, I want them to understand if Nestle reads this article, I want them to understand that they need to have a second flavor into their research strategy. That is not only by taking consumer insights, but also like you have to go and connect with your consumers, before they become your customers, get feedback from them as your consumers. So that's my purpose.
Okay, so the way that I read this right now is I haven't looked at the food tank, so maybe their articles are a little bit more research heavy than what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But what you sort of just articulated to me sounded like a really interesting story. Like, here's a story of a company that is purposely doing this sort of research and development so that they can connect with the consumers. And you're wanting to show that as something that other companies could sort of take advice from almost. But when I read through this, it reads sort of like a report of their food sampling and not sort of a discussion or a story about how they came to the conclusion to go into food sampling and how that other companies could learn from it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, like, the lists and stuff that you have, it generally seems like that to me seems more like would be in a report.
Yeah.
And the statistics also the same sort of thing. If you can use these to tell a little bit of a story, like if you said out of 80% of audiences who are looking to purchase a product after sampling, you could add these together and say something like over 60% were likely to buy it. That shows that this food sampling technique, or this technique of sort of getting to know our audiences, is something that is useful. And if you could even show sort of like other companies that aren't doing something like this and what their results were, that would be something that I think would be beneficial as well.
Okay.
Or even if you didn't have the results, because that probably is not something that they're going to have out there, to even just discuss what are other strategies that people are using that are maybe not, at least to you or at least to this piece, that are not as helpful or that are not as attractive of a research and development tool that we have. Because basically, and you can re-listen to the recording, what you told me and what I feel like I read here seem like two different things.
Okay.
Is that what you told me is like that they have this really cool strategy that you think other people could learn from, and then you could walk me through like what that strategy looks like, but then I'm wanting to see sort of how it compares to what other people are doing.
Okay.
Because it seems like it's kind of unique.
Mm-hmm.
Is it unique, this kind of strategy?
It's a trend.
Okay, so it's starting to be something that more people pick up on.
Yeah.
So that might be why that people need to know about it in the first place.
Okay.
So I almost see it as sort of like the topic is food sampling, which is what your title also leads me to believe. So would think about it maybe starting off with a description of what food sampling is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sort of starting off in a situation. So imagine that this company approaches you and gives you this ice cream flavor, and sort of like put yourself in, getting someone interested in reading about it. Because otherwise it's like, oh, food sampling, like why do I care about that? But it's like you could be involved, like a consumer could be involved, or your company might need to do this.
Okay.
So sort of start us off in the situation, then kind of pull back and explain to me what food sampling is.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me that it is a trend right now, because I don't really see that either. You've told me that personally, but I didn't really see it coming through.
Okay.
That it's a trend right now that a lot of people are using. Why? It's a trend that is just now getting steam, or maybe it was popular way back when and then it lost some popularity, now it's coming back, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anytime with trends, it's either brand new or it's just a recycling of an old trend.
Okay.
So explain why that this is a trend, and then take us through the food shops as sort of like an example of what you've already given us.
Okay.
So you've sort of already told us this is what food sampling is, this is why it's important. Now here is like, basically, here is a scenario where it really worked for this, or it is working for this company, seems like.
Yeah.
And so that way, now we've gotten an explanation of it, we've got an example of it, and then the end of the piece could sort of be showing how this could be used in other situations, or is being used in other situations if you have other examples of it.
Okay. So although in my topic I've started off by saying that the food shop, that's the organization's name, it's okay to go and bring in other businesses into this thing, right? Like how reflecting out the mistakes of other businesses, citing them an example, and how their findings and food shops findings are similar, and building upon.
Sure, you could definitely do that. I mean, you obviously don't want to say this organization is doing a terrible job, but you could show like their customer retention is low.
Yeah.
Maybe because they didn't do this sort of thing, or if they didn't do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Versus the food shop's retention. Well, it's just an issue because you don't have them going to market yet, right?
Yes.
So you can't really say that, but you can say that this is at least working as far as people are interested in the product even before it goes to market, and that they're making sure that people will be interested once it goes to market by doing all this testing ahead of time.
Okay.
So it's essentially like we talk about, and you've probably talked about it too since you do a lot of tech writing, but like user-centered and system-centered.
Yeah.
And a lot of research and development is system-centered. What can we produce quickly, and what, all that sort of stuff. What can we do to get it on the shelves? But this seems to take a user-centered approach where it's saying we can go talk to these people. They can sort of almost participate in our flavor making and in our branding and in our naming of the product.
Okay.
And that's something that's, I think, a lot different than what a lot of people in research and development have been doing. Maybe now they're getting more into this.
Yeah. My only one of the concerns that I'm always fighting against right now in this article, like I want to bring in Nestle in over here, but I feel that I don't have a lot of data, a lot of standardized fight-worthy data from TFES and from Nestle, and I realize that they never publish from where they get it and how they get it and which report they get it. We have neutral reports like Nielsen reports and but so I'm just like concerned, like how do I bring in names over here and really make a call for their actions? That's I struggle with. But I do see that what they like. There's one article on Nestle where they're using agile research, but it's backed by consumer insights, and I don't like that idea because you're not reaching out to the consumer. Just because your team thinks that these flavors are important, how do you know that these are? I know they're consumers, but are you really also talking to the consumers?
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe even like, so I sort of outlined it as introducing to food sampling, showing the food shop as an example. Maybe your last little bit could be like a comparison of food sampling to other popular trends like consumer insights.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of explain, like, okay, consumer insights is a style of research and development that we hear a lot about. It seems like it would privilege the consumer in the same way that food sampling is, but it actually doesn't, and here's why.
Okay.
So that sort of, I think that would sort of show other companies, like, when you hear consumer insights, you obviously think going out and speaking to the consumer or getting the consumer, but it's a very limited sample that they end up getting.
Yeah.
So how could we actually take this idea of consulting with the consumers and actually put it into action, as opposed to just sort of saying we're talking to the consumers, but we're really doing whatever's easiest for us.
Yes.
So I think that comparing it to something that would be something that other people know about, that would be useful.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. That sounds good. I think. Of course, you're not recording this regarding the video audio podcast.